Good afternoon. My name is Tamika Harris, and I'm one of the directors for Crime Stop Jamaica. I am hosting today a panel discussion on crime prevention and mediation. I would add that it also has restorative justice, right, Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to start with Claire. I'm going to ask you, what is mediation?
Oh, well, mediation is actually quite simple. It's basically where parties, two or more, agree to come together to resolve a conflict. That's basically what. And then you will have a neutral party. Let us say me, I'm a mediator. So you'd have a neutral party basically facilitating the process. So I would not be on anybody's side, but I will steer the process and ensure that they ask certain questions that will evoke a particular response, to get the issues to come out. Right? But that's how that starts.
So it starts by finding a way to resolve issues.
Yes, yes.
All right. So Claire, I neglected to ask you to introduce yourself. Would you please introduce yourself? I know that you're an attorney from 1998, and I know that you're a mediator from 2002.
Correct. Right. Well, there's not much more to me than that. I'm an attorney. I work in a family practice. My father, my sister are also attorneys. I enjoy it fully. But I'm also a mediator. I shouldn't say but, and I'm also a mediator, which I enjoy even more. And having had the experience in court, where matters just take extremely long to be resolved, and there is never any surety as to what the outcome will be, I totally enjoy and agree and endorse mediation. So I've been practicing mediation for the courts at the Supreme Court level, at the parish court level. And of course, there are people who ask me privately to do mediations, in other words, mediations that have not yet reached court. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm passionate about it. As I said, I'm passionate about children, in particular children's rights, and I love my country. So that is it. That's me in a nutshell.
As you mentioned mediation in relation to courts, do you think that mediation have any role or significance in relation to the criminal justice system?
Oh, definitely, most definitely. I'm going to yield to Renee to actually answer that, because that's where restorative justice comes in, but it definitely has a place. Renee, I don't know if you want to take that one, as you're perhaps more familiar with restorative justice.
Yes, Miss Renee, you are the Senior Director for Crime Prevention and Community Safety Branch at the Ministry of National Security.
That is correct. And I'll try my best to respond. Restorative justice falls within the portfolio of the Ministry of Justice. So it's another type of alternate dispute resolution. So Claire would have spoken about mediation. Restorative justice, or RJ in short, is another form of alternate dispute resolution. And it is where you may have, here you can guide me accordingly given your legal background. If you have civil related matters or less complex related matters that are within the criminal justice system, whereby if it is that the perpetrator and the victim, the person who the offense has been committed against, you have both willing parties who are willing to sit at a table, if you will, and come to some form of agreement. The perpetrator has to first and foremost indicate that they are guilty of the offense that they have been charged, and that they are willing to admit that to the victim. The victim also has to be willing and open to accept that commission of guilt and that apology. Mediation techniques are applied whereby you're seeking to treat with the hurt and bring forth some resolve between the two parties. And some recommendation can come into place. If it's a case where, let us say, money is owed, money was stolen, instead of it going through the already boggled court system or criminal justice system, the two parties can agree and say, okay, over a period of X time, I'm going to work to repay you this money, X amount per month. So that is one example of restorative justice. So it is very effective in terms of it takes away some of the caseload that's already in the criminal court justice system, the wider justice system in its entirety, as well as it tends to interrupt any potential type of violence or conflict that may be related to that issue after the fact. So somebody and I may have a disagreement and it's in court, and I just can't wait for justice to be served. And I go out and hire a contract killer for argument's sake, because I just need to feel that justice has been served. So that's one example.
Also, they do it a lot with rape victims as well, right? So it gives the victim an opportunity to face the perpetrator. And also, I believe they do it a lot with assault, you know, where somebody has been wounded. And one of the reasons why they use this medium, the restorative justice as well, is because it also helps the community. You know, a lot of these people are within the community. So it helps the victim who lives there and sometimes the perpetrator who helps there. So everybody's kind of invested in this particular medium of justice, restorative justice.
All right, so we're using words that I want us to break down. What is restorative justice? What exactly is it?
Renee?
I think just to reiterate that it's an alternate approach to resolving conflict or dispute. So we are very familiar with the traditional approach of getting justice of matters of a criminal nature. So you have a perpetrator, you have a victim, or perpetrators or victims, somebody's charged, there is sufficient evidence for it to go to the court, etc., right?
I have one question. What if I want to resolve my issue without going to court, or so I have a problem, somebody offends me and I want it to be dealt with? Can it be dealt with without the person being charged because I don't want it to go that far? Do you have any way of addressing that kind of situation?
Definitely. So Claire would have referenced that she facilitates mediations all the time, even outside of those that are referred directly through the court. You also have the hardworking entity, the Dispute Resolution Foundation, where it's a very simple process where you can turn up at the doorstep, indicate that there is a problem. Likewise, you have community representatives who are aligned to the Ministry of Justice, who work within particular spaces, who meet out restorative justice practices. So there are several different options.
Okay, so tell me more about that community. Tell me more about that community effort. So
the Ministry of Justice has parish-based offices for restorative justice. But as we know, sometimes there's a need to get the information to the grassroots level, because there are these incidents of conflicts and persons really only know options A through C, not knowing options D through F, right? And one of the key alternate options is using the alternate dispute resolution through restorative justice or mediation. So there's a person, an officer, parish manager, who has a support team who is assigned to each parish office. Being assigned to a parish office, you would then have specific parishes or spaces, I should say, or communities to which you're assigned to, right? Generally speaking, cases come through the court. But outside of that, using your community networks, other cases can come to you. Also through particular networking. So for example,
so how would I know who to go to and where to go? So my sister and I are having a fight. I really love my sister and I don't want my sister to be charged by the police, but I really need something to be done. Who do I go to and where do I go?
So that's about accessing just contact information. So that could be, you can go to the MOJ's website, Ministry of Justice's website, go to the section that speaks on restorative justice, and there is quite a bit of information there on what the process entails and how you can access the services. Outside of that, again, through networking. So if it is that you have a community development committee who may be of faith, you may have a social development commissioner rep who is of faith with the practice of restorative justice. You may also have justices of peace who also fall under the Ministry of Justice, who they too are quite familiar. They're also trained in restorative justice practices. several different opportunities are there for persons to access the services. Like I said, it boils down again to putting out the information and sensitizing persons, especially at the grassroots level, as to how you can access these services.
From your experience, Renee, would you say that this have any impact on the reduction of crime or the prevention of crime?
No, I find that alternative approaches to dispute resolution, they're extremely effective, especially when they're done in keeping with proper mediation techniques. So you have persons like Claire who are trained, and they're also supported by needed and relevant support systems. So, for example, in a case where mediation is being meted out to a victim, the victim will also require counseling support. There may be other issues that's affecting the victim that the victim will require some other type of intervention. So if you give it a wraparound type of support and intervention, you can get best results. The reality is that majority of our violent crimes are as a result of some kind of dispute or conflict. You have those that are of a domestic nature. So when you talk about the gang violence occurring in the wider community space, when you have violence taking place between known acquaintances or family members, domestic type of violence. Mm-hmm. You also have the intimate partner type of violence that Claire would have referenced. We know that quite a number of these incidents as well are carried out by persons who are known to us, known acquaintances. So we should look to ramp up dispute resolution responses, mediation, RJ, as key go-to responses. And again, with the right support systems, you could see reductions in conflict. Again, I use a platform to promote the work of the Dispute Resolution Foundation, as well as practices such as restorative justice. Because in both cases, mediation is used as an alternate solution to resolving conflicts, as opposed to violence, which many persons use. They're extremely effective because you're treating with the root of the problem, but you're also including the persons who it is mostly affecting, right? I'll use the opportunity as well to mention the work of the Peace Management Initiative and our own Jamaica Constabulary Force, because both those entities conduct what you call violence interruption practices. So let us say that there is a known incident of conflict in a community. It has not yet escalated to violence, but it's on the radar of the Peace Management Initiative or the JCF. There are efforts to violence interruption where they go and they treat with the parties, hopefully before it can escalate to violent acts.
Can you give me an example of how they treat with the parties? Do they offer them counseling? Do they offer how do they treat with them?
So it's a simple, again, calling persons to the proverbial table, having a real conversation with them, trying to get to the meat of the matter. And yes, like I said, if it is that there are other issues affecting the parties, sometimes you can see where it's a man and a woman who are having issues around a child and child support. And it's just escalating to a point of it becoming quite violent. And there's a need to have a real conversation to work out some arrangement between the two of them, providing the counseling to them to be better co-parents for the child, to create a better system for the child. Again, before it gets to a point where, for example, the mother is so stressed one day because of an argument with the father that she decides to beat the child in frustration, and then the child ends up in the hospital with wounds or greater injuries. So one example.
All right, so Mr. Collin, in your opinion, why do you think Jamaicans resort to violence to solve their disputes?
Yeah, so just to follow up on what has been said before, and for me, three things. One, I don't believe as a society we listen well. And that is why people like Claire and Renee are so important, and all those agencies that they mentioned, who can sit the people around the table and get them to listen. For every strategy that I've seen about that deals with crime prevention, active listening is a big part of it, because it helps to suppress the whole movement from a normal conversation from being escalated into physical altercation. In our culture, it is so easy to say, "Me no cut you, I don't cut you," just interrupting what somebody has to say. "I no cut you, but I don't cut you, But so you don't get to hear what the person is saying. And
That's
so
right.
there's no way you can now get to influence that person's behavior so that the person doesn't become violent, and you too don't get a chance to control your own self so you don't become too violent. So I believe that is one. Right. So the other thing I was looking at is also we encourage violence, whether we want to believe it or not. I remember growing up, you know, and I've been in many, many fora where people, oh, the little boy came home and he said that they were bullying him. So, you know, take something and lick him down, you know, or they came home and they said, or the little boy came home and said, you know, a little boy hit me today at school, you know, and he said, so you know, lick him back. So I think we also encourages it, right? And
Look at me. Look at
yeah,
me.
you know, and we have all of that, you know, if I'm me, this is what I would do and what I wouldn't do and whatever. So that also forms a part of our culture, this encouragement of violence. And if anybody saw the thing recently with the police and the woman in Clarendon, I mean, everybody was kick him, instead of go with the police and get released, you know, through the normal process. My third thing is really, there's very little deterrence to violence act, or the appearance that there's punishment for it. So it's not publicized enough that someone who committed a violent act was punished for it. More often than not, you hear, oh, nothing will happen, so I'm not going to report it to the police. So the act is not reported, the authority doesn't get to do anything, and the victim leaves with retaliation in mind. That is to retaliate with violence. So I believe those are the things, in my opinion, that really cause us to resort to violence instead of, you know, the normal way of dispute, keeping it non-violent.
Which other areas of society you think that dispute resolution could be useful?
When you say other areas of society, what do you mean?
Outside of the court system and outside of, what about schools or?
Oh, certainly in the home, for one, right? Because that is where we are going to learn anything. I believe dispute resolution is a learned behavior, right? Nurturing starts. Yeah, it's a learned behavior. And nurturing starts in the home. And so it starts there. But we must have reinforcement in schools, we must have it in churches, we must have it at the workplaces, and any social change agent that can help to bring across the best non-violent way of dispute resolution.
As a matter of fact, Tamika, if I can, just to add to what Colin was saying, they used to have, I don't know that they have it anymore, but they used to have this thing, peace and love in schools, PALS.
PALS.
Yes.
And there's a,
They used to have PALS. Right, which was excellent. You used to have the bird, the peace bird. We used to have a peace day with the blue ribbon. I don't even know if we still have a peace day. And if we have, I just don't see it around like.
There is.
There is, sorry, Renee. So there is still a peace day.
But we don't see it, Renee, so you need to do something else.
Yes, I remember
Exactly.
I used to tie my blue ribbons to my car and the vehicles, and you turn on your lights, and there was an active, active participation in this particular day. So as Colin said, it needs to be in the schools, it needs to be in the home. As a matter of fact, we'll probably get into this and I might be jumping a little. But one of the things I think should be implemented from school, from basic school or primary school coming up, is that all parents should have to do even 5 hours. Before you register your child to enter any school, they should do minimum 5 hours of mediation. They can do 1 hour a day, or they can do it on a weekend if those are going to say their work. But 1 hour a day, I don't think that's a lot. When I think of people putting in braids or extensions, it takes at least 6-7 hours. yes, Tamika.
Please confirm that's not true, Tamika.
and when you think of how long it takes us to do our nails, 2 hours, we sit down. Why can't we give back one of those hours to just learning a little more about how to resolve conflict. So if you teach the parents, they can pass it on to the teachers. And for sure, it should be in the curriculum in schools. It should be the curriculum in the police force. It should be in everything, because as you say, we do not know how to listen. Even myself, I can tell you, when I started mediation, I did not realize how important that tool was until I started to do as much mediation as I'm doing now.
Claire, it's that repetitiveness, though,
Yes.
That's help with it. Because I remember PALS, and to be honest, if we're going to use cause and effect, I mean, PALS, I think, started around about 1994, thereabout, or 95. And several years later, we're still having violence. And I believe it's because after the children leave school and they go home, they untrain them. Or they go somewhere else, they untrain them. So we need this kind of repetitiveness throughout, so that it becomes like an underlying basic function. We're going to be peaceful. Renee is going to be peaceful, irrespective of what I say to her. And it just becomes a part of the culture. Right now, what we believe is that anything I say to somebody, they're going to react violently. So we end up with what we call the security dilemma. Because I know you're going to act violently, I start to become violent. And then you expect me to become violent, you become more violent. And then you become more violent, I become more violent. And so that's a dilemma we end up in until one of us, kill the other.
Yeah. Active listening. It is really and truly so important. As you said, sometimes we jump the gun. I'll give you a basic example that I remember a friend telling me, where his car was hit by a taximan, and poor taximen, they get a bad name, whether they're good or they're bad, they're going to get a bad name just because of how it's perceived that they drive. And he said, when he came out and he spoke to the man, not only did the taximan apologize, which he didn't expect, because he said he went out now, shirt out of pants, ready for him. And the man just, said, I'm so sorry. It was my fault. Can you just check out how much the damage is going to be? And I will pay for it. And he said he was giving him this information and still not expecting it to be resolved, in any peaceful way. And he said he was shocked that the man not only called him every day to find out if him don't get the estimate yet, he fixed his car within, record time. And that, he said, it taught him a lesson, because that's not what he was going for. He was going I'm going to accost him because he hit my car and he's ready for this confrontation. But the man first started with, I'm so sorry. I never mean to do it. How much it going to cost? And they resolved it. As a matter of fact, he was saying, he feels so sorry for the taxman, and maybe he didn't want to take the money after all of that, because he did not even expect to get that kind of response. And they've now become friends. So as you rightly said, if we just pause, we don't have to get heated right away. Just wait a little bit. There's probably an explanation for it, Yes. Sorry, I had added to call.
No, I mean, quite honestly, it's because I didn't want to. I didn't want to really end up running away, leave Mika and Renee, because you and I are the two chatterboxes, But I really wanted to follow up on what you were saying, because I think if we really want to move to a society that's non-violent when it comes down to dispute resolution, that's one. We have to start highlighting stuff like those. How did one person's reaction, which is non-violent, did lead to a successful conclusion? Because right now, most of what we're seeing is saying, or we choose to see, is saying violence is the way to go. You watch movies, violence, and that's how I achieve success. You see what the news tend to bring, violence that leads to success. But I was actually looking at something when I was preparing for this discussion, and I saw where this guy wrote that 53% of these were some political, not parties, but movements were trying to get something done. And from 1900 to 2006, 3% achieved success, non-violent. Only 26% were able to achieve success through violence. And so what he was saying was that because it is not so highlighted, and it's the violent approach that is usually on news until it is resolved, most people believe that is the way to go. He even addressed terrorism and showed how unsuccessful terrorism was in the terrorists achieving their aim. But the one you see on TV, it's the one that everyone remembers, and they choose to go that route.
Yeah. Well, again, it comes down to, when you're talking about prevention, all hands have got to be on deck. I mean all, which would include the newspapers, who, as you said, I would prefer to see Bolt's face on the front and the man who was doing the attacking on the back if it has to be reported. I don't need to see the attacker on the front of the page. I would rather to see somebody who's doing something. Let's see Shelly Ann. Let's see all the girls and the boys that are doing something positive. Put the positive things on the front of the page, but they will tell you that will not sell the paper, just like the news. You know, we have to report everything. There are countries where things are happening, but they just don't report it. We, as you said, more tend to highlight the bad than the good. But again, it means all hands coming on deck. We have to go back to when we are our brother's keeper. We have to go back there, the village, raising the child, the community. It's everybody that, you know, has to do that. We're not looking on the fact that we're all on the same plane. We're all on the same plane, and I mean the physical aeroplane, right? So if something happening in the front, it's going to affect the back. If something happening in the back, it's going to affect the front. It's not rainfall. We're going to rain in one parish and not in the other. We are all on the same island. It's going to affect us at some point or the other. If not now, when we get old, younger ones who we're telling, why never hit him back? That's the one that is going to be coming to rule us. We have to be more committed, you know, to partnering with each other. How can we all help each other? You know, it comes through education, as I was suggesting, that we have to be able to put this in the schools from there, teach children how to listen to each other. As you said, Colin, don't interrupt, let him finish. You know, it's one of the rules of mediation. When you come to mediation, whether it's through the court or you just come, the first thing I'm going to tell you is you have to be prepared to speak one at a time. One at a time. That's how we speak. One at a time. You can't speak over, because then you won't hear. You know what I mean? So that's a rule. So that has to be taught from in the home, from in the schools, reinforced, as you said. You know, that's a part of it.
Renee, as you mentioned, in the home and in the schools, that's one of the ways to address the crime issue. Do you believe that crime reduction and prevention should be left to the police?
Certainly not. So I'm going to go back to what
I was expecting that answer. I was expecting. I don't know what kind of question is this, but hey.
I go back to the point that Claire raised just a while, where she said that it's family business, it's everybody's problem, eh? And if it's everybody's problem, then it needs everybody type of response, right? So the JCF, the Jamaican Constabulary Force, is a force for good. And it is one that goes above and beyond despite the various challenges. However, if I look at treating crime as how we treat any other type of ill that is of an epidemic proportion. And I say epidemic because the rate of violence in Jamaica, the rate of homicidal violence, mimics that of an epidemic when it is that you look at our murder rates compared to our general population, right? The population count. So if I look at crime or violent crime, murders, and I look on that as we do COVID. COVID is a global, it's a pandemic, it's an epidemic. There is no way, even irrespective of the health sector being the lead agency for responding to COVID, that in any platform we have seen where it is solely their responsibility. And I look on crime, responding to crime and violence within the context of the JSS being its primary response agent on the front line, the same way. Crime is a very complex, and violent crime is a very complex issue. It requires a comprehensive response, not just of a national security nature, but right across all sectors. And the role of communities, the role that individuals play, just like in our response to COVID, it cannot be stated enough. People play a critical part, a critical role in crime prevention. Outside of our own personal security, it's also the contribution from everybody that when it comes together, you can look to see the treating the big picture. So if I start from the home, you think about issues of violence that can take place within a home. If it is that you don't effectively treat the home, it's going to spill over into the community. Each community then spills over into wider society, and the cycle just goes on. It's never ending. So while it is that the JCF is on the front line, they are climbing this uphill battle of crime prevention, crime reduction, if it is that they don't have the support of the wider country. They have to have the support of the people. They have to have the support of other sectors, because even when looking at, when you ask yourself, what factors contribute to violence, to violent behavior? The national security architecture is set up to treat with the issue after the fact. So we have the police force, we have the army, we have the Department of Correctional Services. These are treating with issues after the fact. When you look at what is required as meaningful interventions to truly prevent an individual from crossing that line, we then go into the realm of education, we go into the realm of parenting, we go into the realm of social welfare support systems, we go into the realm of skills training, labor market placement, all of these other areas before you get to the whole issue of national security. So it really requires an all of us type of approach.
Yes, I certainly endorse all of what Renee just said. Again, going back to the all hands on deck, I am in a community where we had, call it a disaster. We've had, and this is, I've just said plain, this is in Gordon Town, where we had no road. We have had our main road went for almost a year. And let me tell you, we quickly set up what you call a group, a WhatsApp group, with all people in here, bike, man who ride bicycle, motorbike, carpenter. I mean, we just asked for who is in the community. We needed to know all of a sudden who was living in the community so that we could all exist, because the regular people could not come to work. So if you had a gardener up here and can't come to work, can't get up because of the road, you know, the garbage could not be collected. Going to the post office was not so simple anymore. I mean, you name it, there was a problem. And we had to come together. I never knew most of the people living in my community, I have to admit, because I'm in a car, I get in a car, I drive to work, I get back in the car, I drive home. You don't know people. Having to walk on the road, I met people who even knew me that I didn't know. And it was just wonderful. I was able to offer jobs to some of them, and not me personally, but recommend. In other words, somebody walking and say, boy, I do carpentry. You don't know anybody that need it. I put it on the chat. Anybody need carpentry? This person needs it. Again, I say community, because as Renee said, you need jobs. A lot of these crimes are committed because, you know, people don't have any jobs. They have not been educated. And if you can use a community effort to help, you know, one neighbor was saying, listen, I have a whole heap of breadfruit. I don't know what to do with them. I'm not going to sell them. Anybody know what anybody wants? Anybody know what to do with them? And you could feed somebody else in the community. Somebody could say, boy, send it up to the school. We have old age homes up here. I mean, it's just about rallying. You know, again, I say we have to be more committed to knowing that we have to help each other. The police force alone can't do it. It's not, it's really and truly not possible. So if you go back into prevention, again, you have a problem, find the Dispute Resolution Foundation, find your JP, ask them, where can we look for this restorative justice? How do we get into it? Go to the Ministry of Justice. Even just go there, they will direct you how to get this particular kind of assistance. And it is effective. I can tell you, as a mediator, I have mediated numerous cases, and to see the overwhelming success is amazing. When you see what it does to individuals, when they can resolve their own problems. When you go to court, it's a judge who imposes an agreement on you. And guess what? That's just a band-aid, because the real problem has not been resolved. A judge has told you, another human being has told you how to resolve your problem. When you come to mediation, it's you, the parties, that compromise. You say, boy, what we can do, how we can do this give and take. So we don't have to wait 5 years to go to court. And we don't know which one of us going to win, because there's no sure case. Somebody's going to lose. But in mediation, both parties can win. You will come together and make a decision as to an agreement yourself. As I said, at court, it's a band-aid. We don't get as they would say, you don't squeeze out the head, the pus, because that's what it is. You have to get to the root of the problem. And it's only the people who are in conflict can get to that root of the problem. If not, it's going to come back. So whereas you win a case in court, you have not resolved the real issue. So you're going to see them again in another year or two with another issue. You know what I mean? So we have to get active. We definitely have to get.
To follow up though on Tamika, on the police, can they do it? I mean, I'm going to say the community can't do it by themselves either.
No.
Right? They too, you know, and Renee said it has to be a comprehensive approach. It has to be everybody involved, right? What I'd say for the community is that,
I want to say this very clear before we even proceed. There's this issue called jungle justice. We have to be very careful when we say the community can solve it, because people might just interpret that mean that we must implement jungle justice. So please clear that up right now, please.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You cannot leave it to the community. The community must play a major role, but you can't leave it to them. What I think, and what has been said, are embedded in what has been said so far, though, is that they will need strong leadership, right? That will get them to arrive at the right solutions that are legal, and it proves that the state is still in charge, because you really don't want to end up with a state within a state. So you have to provide that strong leadership that will bring the comprehensive approach, listen to everybody, listen to what everybody has to say, but make those decisions and lead them in the right direction to put in the measures that are necessary. And I'll give you an example. I mean, where Nephew exists right now is between Waterhouse and Seaview. And years ago, we had challenges. You know, if the back fence was to be bushed, it's a war, because somebody over there wants to demonstrate who we should come to and ask to do the work. Thanks to our public affairs department, we in the community, and we formed a community group in both. And I'll say, fast forward to now, and we've been doing this for over 12 years. We've never had anybody come over our fences. We've been able to go in and address some of the needs that leads to criminal act or violence, which is sometimes people just can't afford to do certain things, and they believe violence will bring them that extra income. Some of them over there, and they have their own justifications. You know, yeah, it is okay to commit violence because, hey, I see it happen over in Iraq and those guys are now in charge. Or, you know, my boss, that's what he did. And that's how he's now in charge, you know, and beat up somebody and them say he's bad. So we provide that level of education and training to our society as well, our neighbors, to help them to understand that violence is not right. Correct. So we have to provide that leadership to them. Because
role models.
Gangs have very good leadership. That is why gangs exist, you know, because they have very good leadership. It's just that they're using it for the wrong reasons.
Wrong reason.
We have to counter that by putting in our own people who can provide that same strength in leadership, but lead them along the right path.
All right, so based on what you're saying, it sounds like you're recommending a partnership between the government and the private sector, because wherever it's private sector, right?
Yeah, it has to be, because the government, it has been demonstrated time and time again. The government truly can't afford to do everything that the government wants to do. It's true. And if the government really wanted to do everything they wanted to do, we in the private sector would feel it, because that's how the government is financed, through taxes. So if we can lend that helping hand, government, and we're also closer to the people. And because of the political system we're in, you're going to have some people too who don't trust the government, but they'll trust the private sector. So there is a role for the private sector to go in and provide that level of leadership as well in communities, in crime prevention and violence reduction.
Mhm.
Do you believe that, and I'm asking everyone on the panel, do you believe that there's a genuine effort by persons in communities that are violence ridden to rid the community of the, call them the violence makers?
Yes.
And I agree, definitely.
Yes. The problem we're having, certainly from my experience, is that those who want to make the change don't know who to trust to go to make the change. And I think that's what we have to now work hard at. How do we convince these people that whatever information or advice you give to us, we'll use it and will also demonstrate that it brought about some level of success. I remember talking to Crime Stop about the Crime Stop program, and I got a lot of information on how many crimes were solved through this program. But the truth is, I was just only hearing about it. So if I had information, I probably would not have passed it, because I would have been saying nothing will happen. Yes, Crime Stop is out there offering money for how many years now, and I've never heard of a case that Crime Stop has solved. And so I was suggesting at the time that maybe one of the things that influence people, having done a little bit of information gathering and intelligence processing, one of the things that influence your source to give you information is when they see something come of it. Because some of them are influenced to give you information because themselves want to feel as if they contributed to something great. And if you don't pass that information back to them and even to the wider society that, look, whatever information was provided, whatever sources or resources that were used, we achieved success. So people can start to understand that this is the route to go.
That it worked.
That is it.
And I fully endorse what Colin just said. First, to your question, Tamika, about communities being genuinely interested and making genuine effort to reduce the violence, reduce the crime. It's an astounding yes. The majority of Jamaicans are law-abiding citizens, and they want what is best for their country and for their communities. I have to commend the communities, because in the work that we do, when it is that we had more luxury of being in the field, I'm yet to go into any crime-riddled community and meet a group or groups of persons who are not proactively trying their best to treat with the issues occurring in their space. Colin is right. The issue of distrust and distrust in the system is a very, very real thing. So there are cases where on the outside looking in, community residents, I know some women have been labeled as this, they are the protectors of the criminals, etc. While this is so, we must also be mindful of the power dynamic when it comes on to man and woman, when it comes on to just the power that having a gun affords the bad man. Think about that. Mm-hmm. You having to live in a space where it's a do or die situation, do or die could also mean whether it's loss of life or loss of livelihood. You don't know where your food coming from. You don't know how your family going to be getting taken care of. And the gun is used as this big stick over your head and this means of control and dominance over you. So there is a legitimate fear. In reference to Crime Stop, and I say it all the time, no matter what medium I'm in, it has been tried, it has been tested, it has been proven. Crime Stop has withstood the test of time when it comes on to giving the information and it not coming back to you. What I have found is that, definitely, what I have found is that at the community level, at the grassroots level, they hear about Crime Stop, but they don't have enough information. So I know that we have partnered quite a bit with Crime Stop over the years in terms of even communication. One big gap in many communication campaigns is that we tend to do the campaigning at a very high level and above the ground level. There is a real need to infiltrate the grassroots and get the information to them. And I guarantee if it is that the trust is built along those lines, you will see more coming out of the communities, because they will tell you, we don't trust the police, but I trust a 1 and 2 police officer. Or I trust a pastor who can give the information to a 1 and 2 police officer. The issue is trust, and the trust has been broken for various reasons. Crime Stop, if we work to get Crime Stop, get the community sensitized on the value of Crime Stop, how to access it, you will get more coming in. And it doesn't have to stop there. If you have other channels for reporting, incidents of child abuse, incidents of truancy and poor school attendance, if the people who are willing to make a difference, and there are quite a number of them out there, I stand by my position that it's the majority of Jamaicans, if they have access to channels where they can feed the information and the state and other entities will respond accordingly, I guarantee over a period of time, the dynamic will shift.
And Renee, I just want to say that second part is where I'd really like for you to emphasize. The state has to respond, and the people know that the state responded to their request. I think I have been in most of the communities, and that is the same. Them not do nothing with it. I don't know they're doing anything. And something was done with the information, and we had success. But the same people, or people who wasn't even involved, they don't know. So they can't jump on this bandwagon to say, hey, Stop is working and I'm going to work with Crime Stop. They're not getting back that information. And that is why I made the comment I made to Crime Stop, that you need to market yourself a little bit more now in showing, and it can be very old cases. It don't have to be cases yesterday, or it can be cases 10 years ago. But get people to understand that we listened to you, we did what we had to do, and we solved this crime. So just join this movement. That's what they need now.
And I join Colin and Renee in what they have said so far, so I won't go over it. I will just add that, yes, the public education is so important. And it does not just have to be with the TV or the newspaper. People go into bars. They need to put flyers or whatever in the bars. They go to hospital. When people standing up there waiting on their baby at KPH to be seen, or children's, or any hospital, Andrews, put them there. They need to be in the hospitals. They need to be in the places that people visit a lot. Tax office. Just put up some flyers somewhere, not just about Crime Stop. Same thing needs to be happening with mediation. Same thing needs to happen with restorative justice. So that
I was about to say that, because Crime Stop is looking at when the offense already take place.
Right.
We are trying to prevent the offense from taking place.
Right. And so people need to know, you have a problem, come talk it out with us. You know what I mean? Do the restorative justice, do the mediation. These mediums are available to you. I just don't think that for mediation and restorative justice, I don't think it's out there enough. You still get people who come to mediation saying, so I could do this without a lawyer. Yes, you can. You can come of your own free will. You can go get your lawyer and come with your lawyer. When you go to court, the judge most times will recommend it depending on the kind of dispute, but you can also ask that, listen, this is where we want to go. Although we're here today, can we try mediation? Can we try restorative justice? You know, and also to have places available to them, safe spaces that they can go to have these discussions. You know, because some people are afraid, boy, I don't want to go into the community because they might have seen me. You know, they want to go out of the community to have the discussions. These things are available, but people don't know. So again, it's, you know, public education, because as you said, we're looking at prevention. How can these things be prevented?
And so I'm going to ask Tamika, just for clarity, because you said something a while ago and I'm thinking, and if it is true, then I had a misunderstanding. Is it that you only report to Crime Stop when a crime is committed, or if I have any information at all, I can call Crime Stop and tell them?
But you would be calling Crime Stop in relation to information about a crime that took place, and you know about the offender, or you know something in relation to a crime. It has to be.
So if I just see two guys walking up and down with illegal guns in their waist, or with a gun in their waist, I don't know that it's illegal. It appeared to be illegal. So I don't know that there was a commission of a crime because I don't know the real true status of the gun. Is that something I can call Crime Stop and say I see two guys walking around with their waist bulge and they look suspicious?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. No, I just really wanted to know because there's really not a commission of a crime yet.
I understand,
Right.
but in relation to a firearm, though, that is definitely something for the police to investigate. You wouldn't have the opportunity to go to them and ask them, do you have a license for you to put your life at risk? So calling Crime Stop would be the best alternative in a situation like that.
Would
And
not
thanks for that, because I'm
not,
planning to promote Crime Stop more in my office, you know, so I just want to make sure that I'm on the right track.
Yes,
let
you
me,
are.
did you say in a situation like that, Crime Stop would not be the person to the people to call? Would not?
No, I said it would be. It would be.
It would, yeah, because you were breaking up. I wasn't sure.
It would be.
Yeah, because I could know of something going on next door to me. And I would want to say, boy, I don't necessarily trust going to the police station. I want to call Crime Stop and say, boy, I overhear Renee and Colin plan a little move, you know?
Yeah.
Like them going up on them ends, you know, the morning. So I want to tell it to you. You can figure out who to tell it to. But because I trust
That's
you,
right.
Crime Stop.
Please tell us.
Right, okay. Just making that clear as well.
All right, I'm going to ask my final question. We've been here for a while. I'm asking everybody, crime prevention is possible through. I'm going to start with Claire.
Oh, well, as I've said,
finish that.
Yeah, as I've said before, crime prevention is possible if all hands are on deck. We have to come from, all hands. That's my simple one-liner. All hands on deck. It's our country. It's our space. We have to take it over. Just again, as Renee said with COVID, when we were ready to say, what? There's one person, don't let in anybody. Everybody was ready to say, no, don't let in anybody because we don't want this in our country. We have to protect our country in the same way, the same kind of passion.
Renee said it's a pandemic. Colin, crime prevention is possible through
strong leadership and education and training of all Jamaicans through all the social change agents.
And Renee?
Just to echo the sentiments of my fellow panelists, there's a term that's called Ubuntu.
Called what?
Ubuntu.
Yeah, that's African term.
Right. Yes. So it's a Zulu phrase, and so I don't know how to pronounce the full phrase, right? But what it means is that a person is a person through other people, right? A person is a person through other people. So it speaks to this whole concept and spirit of sharing common humanity, a oneness about the value of you and me working together. And as we have been saying throughout the discussion, crime prevention is everybody's business. And it is much too complex of an issue for any one entity or level of a country, whether it's government, people, etc., to address. It has to be all of us. It has to be the government, civil society, academia, the media. The media plays such a critical role in effective crime prevention. The role of the church, other faith-based organizations cannot be stated enough. Civil society is Jamaica sweet Jamaica with not left here. So it has to be a response from all of us as one, out of many one people.
Thank you very much. I think this is the end of the discussion. It was lively, and thank you very much for driving this along when there seemed to be a little lull. Claire and Renee and Colin, I am very appreciative. Thank you so much. It's the first time I'm hosting anything. And
thank you, Tamika. So you did an awesome job.
Yes, I felt very comfortable.
Definitely.